You're listening to the I'm Busy Being Awesome podcast with Paula Engebretson, episode number 244. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you? Today, we are talking about tech. And more specifically, we are diving into my top 10 favorite pieces of technology as of late. And I got to tell you, it was so fun putting this list together. I cannot wait to share it with you. And also, I will link to everything in the show notes. So if you want to check out any of the different websites or apps or things, it will be there so you can dive in and check it out. Now, here's the deal. I love the idea of productivity apps. I love the idea of habit trackers and to-do list apps and simple pieces of tech that help us manage the things we want to do with our ADHD brains. Now, at the same time, I rarely stick with these apps. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but I will find a new app and I spend a bunch of time diving in, setting it up. I'm super excited about them right from the get-go. But then a day or two in, I've already forgotten about them and I just don't use them anymore. And I'm not saying that there aren't some incredible apps out there that I just haven't yet discovered. And I also know that there are so many amazing apps out there that work really well for some brains, but just not for my brain. And I offer this kind of background disclaimer right from the start because today, although I am sharing a top 10 list of tech tools that I'm loving for my brain, the list is not super app heavy. In fact, I think there may be only 2 or 3 specific apps that I mentioned today. The rest are websites or approaches to use old technology, actual hardware that's making my ADHD life a little bit easier. So these are the tech items that I find myself returning to again and again. In fact, everything that I'm sharing today, I use on a weekly, if not daily or multiple times per day basis. Some of them are, like I said, quite basic. You may even laugh at the fact that I'm even mentioning them. Others I may have mentioned in passing on the podcast before, and many of them are new things that I've never mentioned before. Essentially, I thought it would be really useful to put everything together in one go-to episode so you can easily reference it for simple tech ideas to help reduce that friction in your day-to-day. So in this episode, I'm going to approach the list from more familiar, simple tech first into potentially less familiar or certainly less commonly used at the time of this recording in March of 2024. Sound good? All right, so let's dive in to my 10 favorite pieces of tech that are making my ADHD life easier right now. And the first piece of technology is certainly not new. And in fact, what I'm sharing is actually more of a suggestion of how we can use old technology in a slightly different way. And this is to digitize your notes. So the first way that I love using technology to help me is to digitize my written notes. I still love writing things down. I love writing in a notebook. I think that my ideas flow more freely when I can put my pen to paper. And so anytime I'm starting with an abstract concept or I'm trying to put together different pieces or I'm approaching a new idea, I really find it most supportive to grab a notebook and just start writing. Now, at the same time, I am very familiar with how easy it is to lose that information once we finish with the brainstorming session. We close the notebook, we put it back on the shelf or in the drawer. And again, if you're like me, you have a ridiculous number of beautiful notebooks. So how on earth are you supposed to remember where you wrote it? Now, of course, we could definitely develop a system for that, and perhaps that's a podcast for another day. But what I personally love to do with my written ideas and my notes is to take a picture of them with my phone. And then I store that picture in a document on my phone that I title with searchable keywords. So let me give you an example to put this into context. You could take a picture of the talking points that you jotted down for next week's presentation. You were writing them down in your notebook when you were doing a brainstorming session, and then you could store them in the Notes app on your phone. And you could give that note a title like Talking Points for March 31st presentation for XYZ client, budget, scope, and timeline. And then when you need to find those notes, all you need to do is a general search on your computer. And because you titled it with searchable terms, and most of our phones and computers are all linked together on the cloud, it is so much easier to find things. So with this approach, you get, in my opinion, the best of both worlds. You get to work with your brain by writing things down and having pen to paper, but then also you're capturing it electronically, so you don't have to worry about keeping track of the physical paper or lugging those notebooks with you to work and to the office or whatever. Instead, you just have it all in one place. Now, of course, you don't have to use the Notes app in your phone. You could use whatever document storage approach you like, right? Whether it's Google Drive or Notion or Evernote or what have you. So use the option that you turn to most often, decide once, always use that option, and create some sort of labeling approach that would help you find the document. I love to just ask myself, okay, if I was going to search for this later, what would I be looking for? What would I be typing? What would I be searching for? And I usually put that as my heading. All right. My second favorite way to simplify things with tech as of late is to create a shared note in the Notes app specifically and sharing it with my husband, Ryan. So in any given season, we have a different number of shared notes, but one that is always going is our shared grocery list. Okay, so having a shared grocery list is so helpful because, frankly, we can just add to it throughout the week with things that we need. And then whoever happens to swing by the grocery store knows to just grab the things on that list. It's a really easy way to smooth out any friction, and it's a place to capture information, and we both have access to it because it's a shared document. The same goes for any type of ongoing project that we might be working on together and the steps we need to take, or to-do list tasks for getting Bruno to the vet or whatever. Having some sort of shared space can be really useful. Of course, you can do this with a calendar as well, but with things you need to get from the store and what have you, I really like using the shared notes app. As an aside, I will mention that for a shared grocery list, we've also done this with the actual grocery app. So for example, if I was doing a Target grocery order or a Whole Foods order or something, we can both just add the items to that app as we think about them throughout the week. And then whenever it's time to place that order, the items are already in there and ready to go. So if you don't like using the Notes app or whatever, but you like the idea specifically for grocery lists and making sure everybody's on the same page, that can be a really useful solution as well. Okay. Tip number 3 is to use some kind of smart home device. Now, I will say first and foremost, I know this is not for everybody, no problem. But for those of you who particularly struggle with short-term working memory, like me, and transitions, having some sort of smart home device can be extra supportive. So whether it's something like Alexa or Google Home or Siri, you can use these apps to set reminders so you remember to actually place that grocery order, or to let the dog out at 12:45 because you know you want to be in the car at 1 and you know that you need that time to let them out. Or a reminder to turn on the slow cooker at 10 a.m. so that dinner's actually ready in time at 6. And then on the flip side, you can use these devices to set alarms so you don't forget that you have water boiling on the kitchen stove, or when it's time to pull the cookies out of the oven and you're in another room and you can't hear the timer, the smart home devices remind you, oh, go pull out the cookies. Or when it's time to switch the laundry from the washer to the dryer so we don't forget it in the washer. I also find that these home devices are really helpful if you or your kiddos are working to establish routines, because you can use the devices to set up reminders to transition to the next step of your routine. Every 15 minutes or every 20 minutes or however long it takes you to do each step, you can have it cue you to move to the next routine as you're locking it in. You could even set your devices, like your lights, to dim or to shift to red light if you're really into the type of light that your eyes see in the evening, as a reminder that it's time to wind down or get into bed. I know people who even have it turn off their Wi-Fi at a certain time. So you can get really creative with the different smart home supports, and it can be incredibly impactful. Like I mentioned, for me, it's really supportive in regard to working memory issues and transitions, right? Helping me leave that extra 15 minutes for getting in the car or whatever. It's quite powerful. All right. Up next on the list, number 4, sticking with actual hardware, is my Apple Watch. Now, again, it doesn't have to be an Apple Watch specifically. Of course, there are many different types of smartwatches out there. But again, these are my top 10 pieces, and I'm specifically using an Apple Watch. Oh my gosh, I love this thing so much. I have had it for years and years and years. I did just upgrade because my battery finally gave out after I think 7 years or so. But I find having my Apple Watch incredibly supportive. In fact, this past Sunday, when I misplaced my phone for the 47th time, I literally said to Ryan as I was pinging my phone with my Apple Watch, what on earth would I do without this thing? Honestly, as I am kind of listing out the things I love about this watch, I feel like I'm creating an ode. Let me count the ways. But I love this Apple Watch because it allows me to, first of all, quickly find my phone when I inevitably lose it, because I do leave it all over the house. I love it because I can use my Apple Watch to set reminders and alarms, and my watch buzzes on my wrist. So I am quite noise sensitive, and actual alarms can really dysregulate me pretty quickly. But having that gentle buzz on my wrist is much nicer for my nervous system. I find it much easier to help nudge me out of my hyperfocus or into the next part of my routine. It's just so much more gentle and effective for myself and my nervous system specifically. I also think with an Apple Watch, it's really helpful to use it to jot down quick notes. So if I am out walking around with Bruno, or I don't have my phone nearby, but I want to make a quick reminder, I can easily just hold the little button and then ask, I'm not going to say her name, but it starts with an S, because the last time I did it in this episode, she popped up and I had to stop and re-edit. But the SIRI person, I can ask her to remind me to call the vet or set up an appointment or whatever. I also love how the Apple Watch has built-in reminders to stand up and move around every hour, remind me to take my meds. I can set it to remind me to get enough water, right? All of these little reminders that sometimes as ADHDers, we just forget, especially if we are in a space where we can easily slip into hyperfocus. And then just one more thing that I just love is that I can control the volume of my podcasts and audiobooks, and I can skip through the ads and things all on my watch face. So again, if I'm out walking Bruno and my phone's zipped up in my winter coat pocket, I can just look at my watch face and skip through things or adjust the volume. It's just so helpful. It really takes the load off some of my executive functions so I can focus on other things instead. I love it. I feel like I am just a walking advertisement right now for Apple, but whatever. Okay. The other thing that I love about my Apple Watch actually ties into the next items on my list, which are 2 specific apps. And I'm going to group them together, and they are for tracking your sleep. So there is an app called Auto Sleep, which I like, and then the Rise Sleep app. And I like to use these together. So both of these are sleep tracking apps, and they work with my Apple Watch. I'm pretty sure they work with other types of watches as well. Again, I just use an Apple Watch, so that's all I know, but I think they do work with other watches. But I love both of these apps, especially when they're combined together. So Auto Sleep is an app designed to help you track and analyze your sleep patterns and your sleep quality. So in the morning, it lets me know how much sleep I got, how much deep sleep or REM sleep or light sleep, what have you. I know when I was awake or tossing and turning. Essentially, it's just this useful app for tracking the quality of your sleep. And then combined with that, I love the Rise Sleep app, because this app gives you information about your energy levels and when you're going to have peaks and valleys in your focus based on how much sleep you got. It lets you know what your sleep debt is, and it helps you really sync with your circadian rhythms to ensure that you are setting yourself up for success based on the level of energy that you have that day. So when I can combine these two together, I feel like I have a much better understanding both of how much sleep I got and then also where I might be the clearest and most energized throughout my day. And of course, since sleep is so key when it comes to supporting our ADHD and our executive functions, I just love having that information at the ready. I kind of geek out over it. Okay, next on my list, some of you are going to roll your eyes here, but I find it so helpful, and it is using the subscribe and save from Amazon for all of the regular household things. I know there are lots of things to be said and thought about Amazon. I know people have many different opinions on Amazon. I hear you. I have them too. And if you are not an Amazon shopper, no problem. Okay. I am certain there are other websites that do similar types of subscriptions and things. But for myself, I love being able to use the subscribe and save on, whatever platform it is that you're using, because you don't have to remember to place those orders. It is literally done for you on a schedule. So you are taking all of that unnecessary demand on your executive functions and you are offloading it to a schedule. Now, I want to put a big giant asterisk and underline here, because if you decide to set up some sort of automated shipping approach, you want to be intentional when you set them up. Okay? Because at least on Amazon, they will suggest a recommended shipping rate for the items. They'll say this is the most common, and that might be a great place to start, but it might also be way off, far too often or far too infrequent for your own personal needs. So the way that I approach setting up a subscribe and save type situation is that I never set it up the first time I order. Okay. Instead, I order the thing just as usual. And then when it's time to reorder it, I go to that item from my Amazon orders and I click on it and it tells me when I placed the last order. Okay. I would imagine it's the same on other websites as well. But on Amazon, when you click on that same item at the top of the page, they say you ordered this last on X date. So for example, maybe I look at the paper towels that I ordered on Amazon and I see the last time I placed the order was January 12th. So if I'm on the last roll and it's March 5th, then I know I want to set up a recurring refill every 7 or 8 weeks. Plus, Amazon at least sends you an email a couple of days ahead of time, so you can always change the subscription timeline or skip a month or a week or whatever. And you can also easily cancel, that kind of thing. Again, I'm like a walking advertisement right now. Obviously, Amazon does not need me to be advertising for them, but seriously, this subscribe and save option has been really helpful for me when it comes to getting the basics around the house, making sure they are in stock and I don't have to think about it. Laundry soap, hand soap, dishwashing detergent, toothpaste, makeup, face wash, lotion, garbage bags, dog treats, protein bars. I mean, that kind of stuff that I just know I always need around the house. It's so helpful to not have to think about it, right? All that stuff I use on a regular basis goes on auto ship. I can plan for it in the budget and I can set it and forget it. And that is a big heck yes in my book. All right. Tip number 7 is using goblin.tools, also known as Magic To Do. Now, I know I have mentioned this on the podcast before because I just got a message from somebody the other day saying, hey, I heard you recommend this Goblin app on your podcast, and I told my partner about it, and he loves it. And he's done loads of tasks in the last 2 days that he's been struggling to do for ages. So first of all, I love that so much. It is so fun to hear from all of you and to hear what you're trying and what you're liking. It's so fun to hear from you. But second of all, I love this app so much because it is awesome. So this is both an app and a website, for those of you who haven't heard me talk about it before. And the magic behind Magic To Do or goblin.tools is that it takes big projects, big tasks, and it breaks them down into the smaller steps. And as we know, this is something that many ADHD brains struggle to do. We're really good at seeing that big picture, but it's all those tiny steps that make us want to pull out our hair, having to take that big thing and break it down into the smaller steps. Those sequencing steps are very challenging. And that's where Magic To Do or goblin.tools comes to the rescue, because you just type in the project that you want to do and you click the little magic wand and it breaks down the steps for you. So it's so much easier to get started. Now, you might have to add in a little detail here and there, depending on how nuanced that task is that you gave to the app. But honestly, I think it's really good. I rarely have to add in much of anything. So if you have not tried out this website or this app yet, I highly recommend that you give it a try. At the time of this recording, it's still free. So you literally type in or period tools in your web browser. So rather than .com, it's .tools. And then I believe you can also search the App Store and just type in Magic To Do Goblin Tools. And I always just use the web browser because, like I mentioned, I just don't use apps that often. But either way, you can use either one. Most people that I talk with say they use the app on their phone. Give it a try. I really think it's a game changer. Okay, we're getting close. Tip number 8 of 10. This is something that I actually used as I mapped out this very podcast. And it is a Google Chrome extension called Voice In. Okay, I love this extension or this app. It is absolutely fantastic. And what it does is it allows you to transcribe your speech to text in real time. So as I mapped out my podcast, I talked through it out loud. And then Voice In, VOICE space IN, Voice In, it literally transcribes what I'm saying into Notion, where I was writing down my podcast ideas. And I find for myself that I can speak much quicker than I can type. And I love being able to verbally process through my ideas and then go back and look what I've written out and edit it as I need to. And it's just been really helpful for me to process through my ideas. So if you are also a verbal processor, using something like Voice In, or they have another product called Dictanote. Again, I'll link to both of these in the show notes. It can be really supportive. I think I've mentioned before, there's also options for Word, Microsoft Word. They have the dictate button on Word as well. But I like the Voice In and Dictanote because these work hand in hand with all of the cloud-based tools, whether you're using Notion or Google Docs or what have you, so that you can use it wherever. It's not exclusive to the Microsoft platform. So again, I will link to everything that I'm mentioning here in the show notes, so you can check out everything right there for you. Okay, tip number 9 is another app, and this is an app called 1 Sec. So like 1 second, but 1 sec. And oh my goodness, if you have not heard of 1 Sec yet, and you are a person who finds themselves easily distracted by their phone, you are going to love this app. Okay, so 1 Sec, like I said, as in 1 second, is an app that puts a little bit of time between you and the app that you want to open. So for example, I can set up 1 Sec so that anytime I open Instagram, there is this long pause before I actually enter the app. And the screen essentially shifts colors to kind of mimic taking a breath in and out. So the color kind of rises up and then it sinks back down, mimicking you inhaling and exhaling. And then once that breath is done, it asks you, are you sure you want to continue with this app? And I find that when I breathe with the app, the amount of time that I exit rather than continuing with the app, it's gone up exponentially. I mean, it's amazing how much time this app has saved me because it helps me pause and make an intentional decision. So using 1 Sec on my regular go-to apps like Gmail and Instagram primarily, it's been so impactful because it stops me from habitually app cycling from my phone and then going through the motions of checking email and then Instagram when I don't actually need to check anything. So the beauty of 1 Sec is that it has that built-in pause for all my clients. It literally gets you to practice the art of the pause that we talk about in week 2 in Podia, okay? And what's even cooler is that you can extend the length of the pause, that kind of breathing moment. So for example, I think the regular time that's naturally built in is 5 or 6 seconds. For me, with Instagram, I extended it to something like 10 or 11 seconds. That's a long time when you're just staring at the screen breathing, okay? And that long pause was so painfully slow that I just X out of it and I go about my day because I don't want to wait. And the constant repetition of this practice, honestly, has me completely forgetting to go on Instagram now. It broke the pattern. So now I don't just habitually tap to it because that pause there was enough to help my brain retrain itself. It's out of that habit for me. And now so much so that I kind of forget that Instagram even exists at times. So I have to set a reminder to go on Instagram to make sure that I'm posting things and seeing people and connecting. So if you find yourself going down the rabbit hole on apps or websites or anything on your phone, and it may work on your desktop too, actually. I should check into that. But for sure on your phone, I highly encourage you to give OneSec a try. There are so many ways that you can personalize this app setup to work for you. I will say that it does take a little bit of setup. Okay. It does show you step by step. It has a video that walks you through it, but there are a handful of steps to follow. It's not an automatic process. Like you just download it and it works. So when you sit down to set up the OneSec pauses, that automation that it does the first time, know that it will take a couple of minutes. Okay. So knowing that, maybe make the most of your excitement and the novelty of the OneSec when you first download it and set it up then. Because if you're anything like me, that novelty can be just enough to help you stick with it, to figure out the couple of steps, and then it'll be working. And I'm telling you, it has been such a game changer. And in fact, I set it up on my Amazon app around Christmas time because I noticed myself wanting to keep opening the app. First, it was to track the packages to make sure they were going to arrive on time. But then I kept going in and looking for new ideas for Christmas presents, new deals and things, even though I had already bought everything, but I just kept going and checking. So I finally set it up and I took a screenshot. I went back in my phone. I took a screenshot on January 18th, which is a time that I apparently opened the Amazon app. And it said that I had made one attempt to open Amazon within the last 24 hours, but the last time I used it was 792 hours ago. Okay. I did the math. That is 33 days because I had put that OneSec there that I realized, oh, no, I don't actually need to go into Amazon. And if I do, I can do it on my desktop when I'm intentionally sitting in front of my computer. That is 33 days and so much time and likely money saved. So well done, OneSec. Good on you. And then finally, we have tip number 10, which is more broadly using ChatGPT. Okay, this is an AI tool. And as a side note, I have been thinking about doing an entire episode on how we can use AI and ChatGPT to help lighten the cognitive load for our ADHD brains. If this is something that you might be interested in, will you let me know? You can either send me a DM on Instagram. Again, I'm busy being awesome. You can email me, Paula at I'm busy being awesome. I'm just curious to hear if other people might be interested in learning how to leverage AI, leverage ChatGPT to help remove some of that unnecessary friction for our ADHD brains. If there's interest, I can definitely put an episode together for that. So let me know. But for now, I will say that I love using ChatGPT to help my brain overcome blank page syndrome whenever I need to write something from scratch. So often our brains just need a little bit of direction. It needs a little nudge to get started, and ChatGPT can be a really powerful support in this space. So for example, maybe you're trying to get started on a new project, but you feel frozen. You could literally ask the prompt, I'm staring at a blank document and I don't know where to begin with my talking points for my meeting next week. The main message is XYZ. Can you give me a structured approach to get started? And then let ChatGPT give you that structure so you're not starting from a blank page. Or maybe you're frozen with an email. This is one that I get twisted up in quite often. And if you write something like, I have an important email to write, but I'm struggling to find the right words. Here's the email I'm responding to. Then you can paste that in there. Essentially, I want to say that I won't be able to make it. Can you provide a starting point or a template to work from? And then let it help you. Or maybe you write something like, I want to make sure my email is clear and concise. Here's essentially what I want to say, and then write it out in an ugly version. Doesn't need to be clear. Doesn't need to be perfect. And then you continue. Can you please help me outline the key points to address so that it's short and succinct? Or maybe you want to do some creative writing, but you feel blocked. You could ask ChatGPT, I want to write a short story, but I'm struggling to come up with a starting point. Can you give me a writing prompt to help me spark my creativity? Or I need to create slides for my presentation, but I'm having a hard time prioritizing what to include on the slides. Here are all my notes for my presentation, and you can copy and paste everything that you want to say. And then ask, can you help me prioritize what to highlight in the slides? And Chat will help highlight that for you. When you can provide ChatGPT with the content that you want to say, the general information, it can be ugly. It doesn't have to be clearly, beautifully written, okay? It can feel muddy. Whatever it is, the technology there can help you clarify it. It can help you prioritize. It can help you spark ideas and get those creative juices flowing. And that is what I have for you today. My top 10 pieces of tech that are simplifying my ADHD life, from digitizing notes to shared lists to AI. I mean, we've covered a lot, but the overarching theme for me really lies in simplicity. I've found that the tools I've shared here seamlessly integrate into my life, which makes them stick around much longer than a shiny new habit tracker or some forgotten to-do list app. So as a quick recap, my top 10 include: number 1, digitizing your written notes with searchable headlines. Number 2, using shared notes in your notes app or whatever app you might be using. Number 3, using smart home devices, especially if you navigate challenges with short-term working memory and transitions. Number 4, using an Apple Watch or some sort of smartwatch. Number 5, tracking your sleep with Auto Sleep and Rise Sleep. Number 6, subscribing to your regular items that you use around the home on whatever platform you use. Number 7, trying out Goblin.tools or Magic To Do to help you break things down. Number 8, using voice in or Dict-to-Note. Again, I will link to these in the show notes for talk to text. Number 9, 1sec to help you sidestep those distractions. And number 10, using ChatGPT to overcome blank page syndrome. As always, a reminder, it's not about finding the one perfect solution. Instead, it's about finding what solutions work best for you and your brain. And if you have any favorites that we didn't explore here, I would love to hear about them. Please do pop over to Instagram and send me a DM or share your favorite on the post for this episode. I am at I'm Busy Being Awesome, and I can't wait to hear from you. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for us this week. And if you're ready to take these concepts and apply them to your life, if you're ready to learn how to support your ADHD in a way that's best for you, I invite you to check out today's show notes, and you can learn more about both my small group coaching program, We're Busy Being Awesome, and my one-on-one coaching. Also, if you want to learn my simple step-by-step approach to locking in a routine and making it stick, be sure to check out my free course, the ADHD Routine Revamp. You can tap through the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/routine to sign up. Until next time, keep being awesome. I'll talk with you soon.